outstanding disciple in the ISKCON movement and of Srila Prabhupada. He's also an initiating guru, so he gives Diksha initiation as well. And she also wanted to mention that I think being a doctor, perhaps, she feels strongly about how His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami has made a lot of lifestyle changes so he can fully serve Prabhupada and his missions. So he's actually very, very strict with his diet and his sadhana and his regular daily regimen. So I think, once again, since Ujjwala is a doctor, she thinks a lot of this. She feels like that's a great accomplishment because it's very difficult to, keep a very strict regimen as far as early rising and very regulated diet, eating very simple, very sattvic foods, just kind of eating to live instead of living to eat. So she wanted me to discuss that about His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami. And also she wanted me to mention that he's very expert with empathic communication, which is sort of a style of having empathy for someone that you're trying to understand how they're feeling in a situation. If maybe there's an impasse or a conflict, to kind of put yourself in their shoes to understand how they're feeling at that point in time, so maybe you can resolve those sort of conflicts a little bit easier. So he actually has done many seminars on that around the world as well. Even within the GBC, he's an active member of the governing body commission of ISKCON. So just a couple of quick little synopsis announcements about His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami. And then he'll speak about, he'll speak on Bhagavad Gita.
Do you have a Bhagavad Gita, or?
I asked her for one.
It'd be nice to have a Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll find one.
Yeah. I thought everybody was going to go.
I'll find out. I think some of them come, they came in with some boxes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, thank you very much, and we're very happy to be here with all the assembled Vaishnavas, and I guess you're going to be putting together the calendar invitation at the same time. Double duty. You're working all day, and now you have to work now, too. So, of course, today we're celebrating Gita Jayanti. Tomorrow is the actual day. It's the Moksha Kadashi, which is the day that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita a little more than 5,000 years ago on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So we're going to speak about the Bhagavad Gita, and I think Ujjwala asked me to ask people to read as we're speaking about it. So it'll be more of an interactive type of class rather than just me speaking. But I'll be speaking some interesting things about Bhagavad Gita and also about the distribution of the Bhagavad Gita and how I distributed one Bhagavad Gita and several million people knew about it the next day. I'll tell you that first, after I change to Radha. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita. Please just put it over here. Is that going to block it? It's not blocking.
No, it's fine. That to be a little hard.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Radha Madhava Kunya Jana Vallabha Giri Vadanade Krishna Goswami Sodanandana Rajajanurandana Sodanandana Rajajanurandana Gunasera Manachare Amunatera Manachare Jai Guradu Madhuva Punyavivare Jai Radha Madhava Punyavivare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhare Yasodanandana Prajajanandana Sodanandana Prajajanandana Amunatera Vanachare Amunatera Vanachare Jai Gurada Madhava Punyavivare Jai Radha Madhava Punyavivare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhare Jana Vallabha Girivardhare Sodanandana Rajajanandana Sodanandana Rajajanandana Amunatera Manachare Yamunatera Manachare Jai Gurada Madhava Punyavivare Jai Radha Madhava Punyavivare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramita All Stuteta Satyashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Sabaya Chanada Bhattacharya Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chan Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Se Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopada Saim Kun Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai. Churnam ki jai. Navadiptam ki jai. Jagannathaswami ki jai. Yamunamai ki jai. Shrimati Vilasadev ki jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Vrindananda Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ganat Timranda Shagananjana Shalakya Chatsuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. She has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So tonight we're going to speak obviously about the Bhagavad Gita. First, before we get into the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, I want to mention why it's beneficial to speak about the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he mentions that he who teaches this science of Bhagavad Gita to the devotees is what? Anyone know? Most dear to him. So what's the advantage of being most dear to Krishna? You get the mercy. And what is the mercy? You get to realize your Satchit Ananda identity. Eternity, blissful, and full of knowledge identity. So if you become dear to Krishna, you become Shushukam Kartamavyam, as Krishna says in the 9th chapter of the Gita, Raja Vijay, Raja Gunyam, Pavitram Idamuttamam, Pachaksha Bhagamam Dharmam, Shushukam Kartamavyam. That you become always happy. Shushukam Kartamavyam. And unfortunately in this world, most of us are dukhi, not sukhi. We're unhappy, and so to become happy, we have to transcend this world in our consciousness. Even while living in this world, the example given is like a lotus leaf can be in the water, but the lotus leaf does not get waterlogged, does not get full of water because it has a waxy coating on it. So someone who is Krishna conscious can live in this world but not be of this world. In other words, can always be happy. So, that's the advantage for me in presenting Bhagavad Gita tonight. So I get a big advantage. So you can also get that advantage later on if you distribute the knowledge in Bhagavad Gita or pass out Bhagavad Gitas to people or sponsor Bhagavad Gitas to be distributed in different places. And of course, there's different programs we have for that. So I had a very interesting experience of distributing a Bhagavad Gita in which millions of people found out about my distribution of the Gita the next day. And I got a lot of benefit for that. And I'll tell you the story of that before we get on to the Bhagavad Gita. Once upon a time, I was in India, in Govardhan. This has happened a few weeks ago, actually. And who was my neighbor but a very famous person who I'm sure all of you know, and you ladies will faint when you hear the name. Akshay Kumar. Don't faint. So, anyway, he was my neighbor, living right next to me. He was shooting a film, some film, and I'm not going to mention the name of the film. It's not such a nice name. I'm not going to mention it. So, those of you who know what I'm talking about know that I shouldn't mention it. So anyway, so we were shooting a film. So, what I did is I just decided to distribute a Bhagavad Gita to him. And it was hard, even though he was living, Hare Krishna, even though he was living next door, it was hard to get to him because he has all these guards and paparazzis and all sorts of people around him. So I had a very interesting idea. I sent two young ladies over, and young ladies are always able to get in to see someone. They can get past all the bodyguards. They just go to the bodyguards, say Hare Krishna, and so they got past the bodyguards, and they brought him over to my house, and I gave him this Bhagavad Gita, and in addition, I gave him a garland, mala, and prasadam. And he was so happy to get that Bhagavad Gita, he put it on his Facebook page. There's a picture of it on his Facebook page. You don't have to look at his Facebook page, but because there's other things you may not want to see. There's a picture of it on the Facebook page, and he says, "I was so blessed today to get this Bhagavad Gita," and a picture of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So, by my giving that Bhagavad Gita out to him, I got some benefit. So, okay. Now we'll talk about the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is contained in a larger work that most of you are familiar with, which is called the Mahabharata. And actually, the right name for India is Bharatvarsha. The name India is a modern name, and the actual name is after Bharat Maharaj, and therefore it's called Bharatvarsha. And India was quite larger in those days, 5,000 years ago. India encompassed, of course, what we know today as Pakistan, Burma, Cambodia, Thailand, and even Afghanistan. Because we find in the Mahabharata that Dhritarashtra married a girl from Afghanistan. That was Gandhari. And that's why Afghanistan is called Kandahar nowadays. So very interesting. So the Mahabharata describes this history when the great family, the Kuru family, had control practically of the whole earth, the whole civilized earth. Of course, if you go according to modern anthropologists or archaeologists, they'll say that life began around Egypt, around the Nile Delta and stuff like that. But actually the civilization was in existence in India and Greater India, Bharatvarsha, for millions of years. And there's even archaeological, anthropological evidence to bear that out. And that evidence is not accepted by the anthropologists and archaeologists because they want to keep their theories. Anything that goes against their theories, they just throw out. But there's definite evidence.
It's changing now.
Yeah, it's changing now. There's one interesting book published by ISKCON, is The Hidden History of the Human Race, and it details all these what's called anomalous evidences of people existing for millions of years in India and other places around the world. So, anyway, so over 5,000 years ago, you had this great land of Bharatvarsha. And several things took place that are described in the Mahabharata. There are three levels of understanding the Mahabharata. One level is, it's a fratricidal war, right? Between the Kurus and Pandavas. Actually, the Pandavas in one sense were Kurus too. It's fratricidal war. Another level of understanding it is that it's an interplanetary war. And I'll explain what I mean by that. That before this whole episode of the Kurus, Pandavas, Shantanu occurred, the demons and the demigods, they were fighting, and I'm going to just make a long story short. And eventually, the demons came down to the earth planet and became kings. And the earth was overburdened, Bhumi was overburdened with all these different demoniac kings that were hiding out from the demigods. And she went to Lord Brahma, and then Krishna decided to appear, Pritranaya Sadanam Vinashaya Chadushkratam, to get rid of the demons, the demoniac personalities. So in those days, the demons actually took birth as Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas means kings. And of course, that may be still going on today in terms of our modern day politicians, and I'm not going to speak about that today. So that's another level we can understand the whole Mahabharata. And the third level is that it's a Leela of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and of course that's affirmed in the 10th chapter of the Gita, where Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaks. He says that you are the supreme abode, the supreme purifier. And he says, I know this because Ahus Twam Rishiyak Sarvaye, Devar Shir Naradasa. I know this because Narada Muni, the great sages, Vyasa, Asita, Devala have confirmed this. So it is a Leela. The Mahabharata on a higher level is actually a Leela of the Supreme Lord. Leela means a playful pastime. And why does the Lord come down to do these playful pastimes? Of course, Pritranaya said no, to annihilate the miscreants. But on a higher level, Krishna comes down to this world so we can become attracted to him. And when we are attracted to him, then Krishna said, Chaktva Deham Purnarjanma, Naikimam Etu Sojana. I think you all know that verse. Janma Karma Chami Divyam, it's from Gita. That when one is attracted to Krishna, knows about the appearance and activities of Krishna, then he doesn't have to take birth in this material world. Again, Punarjanma, Naikimam Etu Sojana. And this material world, Krishna describes also in the Gita as being Dukalayam Shashvatam, a place that's temporary and it's not so nice, as we're all experiencing. When people are young, they don't experience it. Like Ishwar's age, he thinks the material world is great place. But as you get older, it gets old on you. It's, been there, seen it, done it. So that is why Krishna really appears. And so the Gita also functions on these different levels. That we have Arjuna, who is supposed to be fighting on behalf of Dharma, and he's confronted with this dilemma. I mean, all of us are confronted with different conflicts in our lives, different choices in our lives. He's confronted with the dilemma of either fighting for Dharma, and which means killing his family members, his dear grandfather, especially his grandfather, his teachers, his cousin brothers, etc., or just giving up and letting a Dharma to take over or to continue to be taking over the world. So it's a big dilemma that Arjuna has. So that's one level, and Krishna, of course, in the Gita convinces Arjuna to fight on behalf of Dharma. But another level, the Bhagavad Gita establishes what we call tattva. That means the truth of life. Three things, actually. Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. Three different things. It establishes who we are, who Krishna is, what the material world is. There's actually 5 topics of Sambandha. What the material world is, what time is, what karma is, who the living entity is. That's the first thing. And then 2, what do you do about it? And Krishna's recommendation in Gita is to perform bhakti yoga. Because in the beginning of the Gita, he does go through karma yoga, sankhya yoga. But ultimately, Krishna says in the end of the 6th chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shadava bhajate yomam same mudyukta tamo mataha. The best person is the bhakti yogi. And so that's, Krishna teaches the process of bhakti yoga. It hints at it. It doesn't teach all the aspects of it. That's taught later on in the Bhagavatam and the other books, some other books. And then finally, Prayojana, Krishna teaches us the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is Chatvadayam Punarjanma, to go back to the spiritual world. Natad Vasyate Suryo, Nasha Shanko Napavaka Yatgatwa Nivartute Tadama Paramama. As Krishna says in the Gita, that Krishna's abode is so wonderful, you don't need an electric company. He says there's no need of electricity. There's no need of sunlight or moonlight because everything is self-luminous there. tad vasyate suryo. Nasha Shanko Napavaka. Yatgatva Nadivartante Ta Dhamma Paramama. So Krishna describes his eternal vote. Hare Krishna, good to see you. So, anyway, so these are the teachings of the Gita. So rather than go over every verse of the Gita and all the different information of the Gita, I thought we'd just do a real basic summary and have you all participate in the summary, because the whole knowledge of the Gita, all the information is described in 4 verses. If you learn 4 verses of the Gita, you know the whole Gita. It's not that you shouldn't study the rest of the Gita, but these 4 verses contain everything. Does anyone know what verses I'm referring to? Yeah. 10, yeah, chapter 10, which is called the opulence of the absolute. I mean, later on in that chapter, chapter 10, Krishna describes different aspects of the material world that are just amazing or big or powerful that represent him. For example, Krishna says, of aquatics, I'm the shark. But this does not mean that we worship a shark. If a shark was the same as Krishna, we would stick our heads in the mouths of the shark and then we'd go back to Godhead. But the shark, these are different great things in this world, like Mount Meru and all these different things that are described in the 10th chapter of the Gita. So this is just to give an indication. Just like when I was young, many, many years ago, before any of you here were born, I used to lay out, when we were camping, I would lay out under the stars and just look at the sky and say, oh, how great God is. So that's the 10th chapter. But before Krishna gets into those descriptions, he has what's called these 4 nutshell verses, the essence of Bhagavad Gita. So what I'm going to do now is ask you all to, or some of you, or a volunteer, to read one verse, the first verse, and then we'll comment on it, and we'll go into the next verse and the next verse. So who wants to read text 8 in the 10th chapter of the Gita? That's on page 429. The middle, just another interesting point about the Gita. The middle 6 chapters of the Gita are considered to be the cream of the Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters are introducing the eternality of the soul, different types of yoga, and then the last 6 are dealing a lot with the body, the material nature, the modes of nature, and of course 18th chapter deals with surrender to Krishna and always thinking of Krishna. But the middle 6 are actually like the cream. If any of you ever have taken these cookies, the cream-filled cookies, they're called Oreos, or a sandwich or whatever it is, then the inside is the most important part. So the middle 6 chapters are considered to be the real essence or cream of the Bhagavad Gita. So, okay, you want to read
Sri Bhagavan Vacha Aham Sarvasya Prabho Mattah Sarvam Pravartate Iti Matva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvita.
You want to read the translation?
I can read. I am the source of all, Krishna says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts.
So, I guess I should unpack that verse. I mean, I'll explain what that verse means. Like, Krishna is a very interesting person. He always resides in Goloka Vrindavan. There's this verse in the Brahma Samhita, Goloka Ivni Vashiti Akilatma Bhuta, that Krishna never leaves Goloka. And he's enacting all these amazing pastimes. Actually, there you have Radha and Krishna there on the altar. I forgot to offer my obeisances. So he's dancing with Srimati Radharani in Goloka Vrindavan. He's playing with his cowherd boys, friends, in Goloka Vrindavan. He's killing demons, of course, and doing so many activities in Goloka Vrindavan But here he says he's the source of all the material and spiritual world. So this is quite interesting. How does he do that in spite of playing all the time? That's very interesting. Well, the explanation is that Krishna expands himself. Ramadi Murti Shu Kala Niyamena Tishtam. That's from the Brahma Samhita also. Krishna, in his original form, and we say it's original form because the Vedas say this, Ete Chansa Kalak Punsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna in his original form is in Vrindavan, but he is able to be everywhere simultaneously doing different things. Danturasta Paramanu Chayanturastam. He's in every atom. And he expands himself to perform different functions. For example, here we're talking about Krishna being the source. Let's take the material worlds first. The way he's the source in the material worlds is he expands himself as a form of Vishnu known as Mahavishnu. And this Mahavishnu breathes out in all the universes. There's multi-universes. Those who studied quantum mechanics, anyone studied quantum mechanics here? You know about multiverses? Good. You got at least one good person here. So there's unlimited numbers of universes. The description in the Vedic literature is like seeds of mustard seeds in a bag of mustard seeds, unlimited. So all these come out, these multiverses come out of, verses doesn't mean songs, multi-universes. They come out of Krishna, or in the form of Mahavishnu. At the same time, Krishna is playing in Goloka Vrindavan with all of his friends. Pretty amazing, isn't it? We call that multitasking. Now, I cannot multitask very well. Sometimes my mother calls me on the phone, and I try to type on my computer at the same time. And she detects that I'm pausing too long. She says, "Are you typing on your computer?" And of course I say no. But just try that with your mother. So, because we cannot multitask. The brain is not very good. Ladies are better at multitasking than men. They can feed their babies, cook a meal, talk on the telephone, iron clothes, all simultaneously. But they're not as good as Krishna. So Krishna is amazing. You cannot think of anyone more amazing, more powerful, more variegated than Krishna. And if you can, that person must be God, but you can't. God is the person whom you cannot think of anyone greater than, or more beautiful than, or more powerful than, or more intelligent than. And that's the definition of God. That's a Western definition of God. So Krishna in his form of Mahavishnu, he breathes out all the universes. Then he expands himself again, goes into each universe as the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, another form of Vishnu. And then from his navel comes Lord Brahma. And then he expands himself again as the Shiradakshay Vishnu, who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart. And so he has all these expansions. In addition, he has all these incarnations, Kurma, Matsya, Varaha, Nrsimha, unlimited incarnations all simultaneously. So in this way, he's maintaining, he's creating. And as Lord Shiva, expanding as Lord Shiva, he destroys the material world and his Tandava Nritya. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Does everything. He doesn't need anyone else. He's Aptakama and he's Swarat. Swarat means he's independent. He can do anything he wants without anyone else. He doesn't need you. Of course, he wants our devotion. Why does Krishna come down to take the trouble to present this philosophy? Because he loves us. True love is there when you don't need something from someone, and you still try to help them. Generally in this world, we try to help someone because of what they can do for us. But true love, which is Krishna has true love for us, he simply is helping us. He doesn't need anything. So he's the source of all the worlds in this particular way. Everything comes from him. Aham adir hi devanam. The devas come from him. Aham bija prajapita. This is another verse in the Gita. He's the seed-giving father of everything. So, this is this verse. Everything emanates from me. And so once you know this, then you want to serve him. Why do you want to serve him? Because if someone's so great and so wonderful, so attractive, then naturally, that is our constitutional position, to render service to him. And that's the only way you're going to be happy. Because in addition to being the source of all the spiritual material worlds, he's also the source of us. Right? So we are described by Krishna in the Gita as Mami Vamsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manashashtani Indriyani, Prakriti Stani Karshati. We are Krishna's parts and parcels. So being parts and parcels of Krishna, it behooves us to serve the supreme whole, who is Krishna. Right? And the example given in the Vedic literatures is like watering the root of the tree, then the leaves get watered. So if we serve Krishna, then we become happy. And if we don't, we're like the fish outside of the water that can never be happy no matter what amenities it has. So, final is, worship me with all their hearts. That's actually very interesting. And actually it's Bhava, let me read the Sanskrit, Bhava Samanvita. But actually, it means with great attention, but Bhava with all emotion too. Bhava means emotion or feeling. So many of us, we worship Krishna just ritualistically. But the whole point, the difference between Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga, if some of you want to know, is that Bhakti Yoga means to work for Krishna, but do it out of a sense of trying to please Krishna. And Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhishanati, yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. Only by that bhakti to be known, not by karma. Karma yoga is good, it's a step up there. But if you just do that, you're not going to achieve Krishna. And the way we worship Krishna with all our hearts, first of all, we have to practice it. And the practicing is called sadhana bhakti. So that's the first verse. Okay, a little explanation of the first verse. Let's go on to the second verse. And the second verse actually deals with what we should be doing. Who wants to read? That's the third verse. That's fine.
Machitta madgata prana bodhayantah parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha.
And the English?
The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me.
So here Krishna is describing what is translated as pure devotees. Okay. So right now, most of us are not pure devotees. Pure devotees means, according to this great devotee Rupa Goswami, Anyavi Lashata Shunyam Gyana Karmana Vratam Anukriyana Krishnana Shilanam Bhakti, which means to have no other desire, not karma or jnana, which means nothing in this world, or not even liberation, karma, jnana, and avritam, but only desire to please Krishna and do what Krishna wants, and do it in a spirit of devotion. So, we're not at that stage. So what do we do about it? Well, we follow the process that Dhruva Maharaj gave. You know Dhruva? Dhruv Maharaj, he wanted something in this world. So we should be honest with Krishna and say, hey, I want a kingdom greater than that of Lord Brahma. No, we shouldn't want that. But at least, as it's said in the Bhagavatam, Akama sarva kama moksha kama dharadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. We should approach Krishna. Yes, if you have some desire, and we all have desires in this world, then we approach Krishna. And gradually, those things get purified. Krishna also says in the Gita that people come to him with desires. Chatur vidha bhajanti mam. He says 4 types of people come to me. People want wealth, people are inquisitive, people are in distress, or people want knowledge. However, we come to Krishna, whatever reason you come to Krishna, then you get purified. Because the process works. So, in other words, even if we are not pure, we should come to Krishna and pray to Krishna for whatever we want, as long as it's within the purview, within the what Krishna would accept, and then Krishna will take care of us, and we perform this bhakti yoga in that mood. Bhakti yoga, as I mentioned before, means the rules, certain rules and regulations, regulated principles, chanting the Lord's holy names, offering your food to Krishna, and then you'll be happy in this world, and then ultimately you come to the pure platform. And when you come to the pure platform, as described by here, by Krishna, great satisfaction and bliss, tushanti cha, ramanti cha, you'll experience what's called the bhavas of emotion. Bhava means, of course, emotion again, but the uncontrollable ecstasies that a pure devotee experiences. I mean, that's what's in store, because we all want to be happy. We're all searching for happiness. I mean, I don't think anyone here wants to be depressed. So Krishna is giving us that means of becoming happy. And the pure devotees, they have, even the ecstasies they experience are described in the Vedic literatures. There's sattvika bhavas, there's vyabhachari bhavas, there's vibhavas, there's sanchari bhavas. All these different emotions are described very elaborately by the acharyas who studied the Vedic literatures. And so that's in store. And then, katiyantas jabam nicham, then we'll only be interested in Krishna Katha. Krishna Katha means Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Katha, talks about Krishna's service. Other things are described as Gramya Katha. Gramya Katha means things that keep us within this world, ordinary village talk, like politics or something like that. This actually will liberate us. So this is the 9th verse. So let's go to the 10th verse now. Who's going to read? Someone else should read the 10th verse. Yeah.
Tesham satatayutanam vajatam kriti korvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam
Dudamam Yantite.
To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me.
Very wonderful verse. Because this assures us, like Krishna says in the 15th chapter of the Gita, Matak Smritir Jnanam Apavanam Cha. He says that from me comes remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. Krishna is situated in the heart. Ishwara Sarva Bhutanam Radeshi Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudani Maya. Krishna is situated in the heart and directing us. So if we have the right desire, Krishna will give us good intelligence. See, Krishna is reciprocating, as he says also in the Gita, Yayatam mam pravajante tam stataiva vajamiham. As they approach me, or as they go to me, I reciprocate with them accordingly. So when we have the right desire, when we're devoted to Krishna, tesham satadiyat, bhajatam, priti porvikam, with love, then Krishna gives us the right intelligence. But if we cultivate the wrong desire, then the wrong intelligence. For example, if one wants to be an atheist means someone who doesn't believe in God, then who gives the intelligence to be an atheist? Krishna. Everything comes from Krishna. As we heard in the first verse, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu, everything. So intelligence. So Krishna is thinking, this person wants to forget me. Okay, here's some intelligence. Krishna consciousness is called Buddhi Yoga. That's another synonym for Krishna consciousness, which means it's the yoga of intelligence. Now, Krishna describes in the Gita that eightfold material elements, Bhumi, Rupa, and Alo, Vayu, Kamano, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, that the intelligence is the highest element in this world. Of course, it's connected to the false ego, but it's the highest element. And if intelligence is properly applied, we can use our intelligence to control the other elements, control the senses, to control the mind. That's why the example is given in the Upanishads of a chariot. The chariot, of course, is the body, the human body or body. And then on the chariot, there's a passenger. And that passenger is us. And that chariot is being pulled by 5 horses. And those 5 horses are the 5, does anyone know? Senses. And then the reins are controlling the horses. The reins are the mind. And the driver is the intelligence. So that means, Buddha Yoga means that when we have the right intelligence to control the mind, which is very hard according to Krishna and the Gita, according to Arjuna actually. In the 6th chapter, Arjuna says, Chanchalahi manaha Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham ye vayor ivashadushkam. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Krishna responds saying by constant practice, one can control it. And by the chanting process. By chanting and praying to Krishna, the restless mind comes under control. So the intelligence, what does the intelligence mean? Krishna conscious intelligence, it means knowing the right thing to do. I mean, we all have these choices in life where we know the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do, and then we make the wrong choice. As they say in the Christian world, the devil made you do it. Or as they say in the Vedic literatures, Maya made me do it. So we all have an excuse. We choose the wrong thing. But to make the intelligence very strong to choose the right thing, that's Krishna consciousness. And so Krishna is giving us that intelligence, and we must train the mind up. Actually, in yoga, according to Patanjali is the author of the Yoga Sutras. He says one of the first things is stop the vritti, stop the turning of the mind. That's the process or the purpose, one of the purposes of yoga. Vritti, stop the turning of the mind. So, and then focus it on proper intelligence. And then when you do that, then Krishna gives you proper understanding, and then you follow that understanding. Okay, and finally, the last verse, text 11. Who's going to read? Any volunteers? Yeah, Kartamisha. And translation. So, basically what this verse means is that we depend on Krishna. And we undergo what's called the process of Sharanagati. Of course, that's mentioned in the 18th chapter of the Gita. We have this famous verse, of course, that Sarvadharman Prajaja Mamikam Sharanam Praja Aham Tvam Sarvapapebhyo Mokshiyashyami Masuchaha. So, this Sharanagati, I mean, we hear this verse often. How to surrender, or what is surrender? And really, that's not described. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared a little over 500 years ago, explained what it means to surrender to Krishna. Because Bhagavad Gita is meant for very intelligent people, hopefully we're intelligent, but it needs a purport, it needs to be explained, and also surrender is very hard to understand, and also surrender makes us want to rebel. Like whenever our parents said to us, surrender, we said, we made believe we surrendered and did something else. So what does it mean? So Lord Chaitanya describes exactly what that means. There's 6 principles of Sharanagati. And we should hear them. Very interesting principles. One principle is to accept everything favorable for serving Krishna. Now let me unpack that one too. What does it mean, everything favorable for serving Krishna? That means, basically, that we need guidance. We need, of course, Krishna also says in the Gita, Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevya, that we, just to approach a spiritual master or someone for guidance or a spiritual personality for guidance, how do we know what is pleasing to Krishna? I mean, what does Krishna like to eat? How does Krishna like to dress? Just like we have the deities here. What do we do for Krishna? Should we dress Krishna in blue jeans? There was one temple in India, the Banka Bihari temple. One day they dressed Krishna in blue jeans, gave him a cell phone and a watch. Is that what Krishna wants? I don't think so. There's no record of Krishna 5,000 years ago dressing in blue jeans and having a cell phone and a watch. Maybe he has an incarnation that does that, but not that I've heard of. So then we have to find out what Krishna wants, and then according to our psychophysical nature, engage in Krishna service. So what Krishna wants for each person is different. We have these ashrams and the varnas in the Vedic system. One person, what Krishna wants, he may want them to be a sannyasi. Here I am. So, another person, you may want them to have a family, Prajapati. Just like you see in the beginning of the universe, there had to be a lot of children. You had Prajapati, of course, Lord Brahma is a Prajapati. And then of course, Daksha had tens of thousands of children. Kashyapa, he had children. Aditi, I mean, all these children filled the universe. So that may be what Krishna wants for that person. Or Krishna may want someone to be a pujari, or Krishna may want someone to be a cleaner, just someone to clean the temple, because cleaning the temple is also just as valuable. Any of these things, anything that one does for Krishna is seen by Krishna as being equal. I know sometimes we see someone who's just cleaning the floor up, low class, bungi or something. Or someone who is preaching, sitting on a high seat, oh, very nice. But actually Krishna appreciates them all equally. So to understand what is favorable for serving Krishna, we need to have guidance. What is favorable? Well, there's certain basic things, obviously Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, Yome Bhakta Prayachati. You offer me vegetarian food, obviously. Krishna never says, offer me a leaf fruit or a little fish with love and devotion. Even though we all know that fish is a water vegetable. That's what they say in Bengal. Yeah. Nanga Prasad. Nanga Prasad. So anyway, so Krishna doesn't say that. Krishna likes certain things. So there's certain basic principles, and then there's the specific application. So that's the first principle, accept everything favorable. And the second principle of Sharanagati is to reject everything unfavorable, like meat, fish, eggs, and intoxication, and all these other things. They're unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. And then also we need guidance for that. We need a lot of guidance for that. But then the next principles are a little harder. To understand that Krishna is always maintaining you. In other words, don't get an anxiety. That's hard. Of course, you can get an anxiety for serving Krishna. That is actually transcendental. Like my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he was in anxiety many times because he was trying to establish Krishna consciousness all over the world. In 11 short years. He came to America in 1965, and he passed away in 77, and things really started rolling in 66. So he basically had 11 or less years. So he was in anxiety about so many things, the safety, the spiritual life of his disciples. That's a transcendental anxiety. But as far as ourselves, Nityo Nityanam Chaitana Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yogadadati Kama. Krishna's taking care of all the living entities. He takes care of us. And then connected with that is understanding always that Krishna is protecting us. Now, why, if Krishna's always protecting us, Krishna's always maintaining us, do things happen that are not pleasant from time to time? I mean, you may say, why is Krishna doing this to me? Because Krishna has your ultimate good in mind. So things, short-term things may happen, and that happens to all of us. That things happen that are really painful, whether it's disease or someone passing away, or any one of a number of things, financial issues, or whatever. But then it's, you see long-term, what does it say? Hindsight is 20/20. 20/20 means perfect vision. So you look behind, hey, that happened 20 years ago to me. That's why Krishna did it. Or that happened so I can approach Krishna more. That happened so I can have more love for Krishna and help other people come to Krishna consciousness. Things like that happen. So to have full faith that Krishna is always maintaining one and protecting one. And the last two surrendering principles, the principles of Sharanagati, are even harder. One is to always be meek and humble. Meek and humble means to accept Krishna's opinion. Not necessarily that you just have to speak softly, but you should accept what Krishna wants and put aside your own particular purposes. And then the last principle is to have no separate interests other than interests of the Supreme Lord. So it takes time to develop that. We're not demanding that or saying that everyone should have that immediately. But by chanting Krishna's names, because Krishna is there, Nanamakari Bahoda Nijasharva Shaktish, that Krishna is there in his name, the potency is there in his name. And so by chanting Krishna's name, then that developed, the heart becomes purified. Chetodarpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadvartinavarpanam. So ultimately you do come to the point of surrender, happy surrender. It's not surrender with a gun pointed at your head, but it's happy surrender. So Krishna is so kind that he appeared 500 years ago, more than 500 years ago, approximately, to teach us this happy surrender process. You know the exact year? 500 and something.
Which one?
Lord Chaitanya. Oh
Yeah,
yes.
Chaitanya.
Yeah, let me be more specific about it.
Krishna is 5,000.
Yeah, Krishna.
5,000.
Yeah. Krishna Varna Tvisha Krishna Sango Pagdashta Parshadam Yagyahi Sankirtanayar Prayar Yujanti Hisumedasa. That Krishna appeared in this age of Kali as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give us this process of surrender gradually. Because Krishna understood that in Kali Yuga, people are not really qualified or can't surrender or can't do devotional service so easily. So Krishna gave it a very easy process. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nishteva, 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 Gatiranyatam. And by that process we can understand the Bhagavad Gita. And we can surrender to Krishna and be devotees of the Lord and attain our original spiritual identity, Satchidananda. So, any questions or comments? Yes?
So you were talking about atheism, right?
Atheism, yeah.
Yeah. So the more I read and the more I tried to understand, I started feeling is Krishna the atheist? Because
You feel that what?
Krishna itself is an atheist. That's how I feel. Because
Krishna is an atheist?
That's what I'm saying. Because the definition of God, the way he gave, right? I'm everywhere. Everything is with me. So that's the definition of God.
Yes.
So if everything is God,
That's a
he's the
partial...
most.
Okay. Very good. Very good question.
So what I see more, I think, is I don't see. I used to see atheism and those things, but I think I started seeing. The more I go, there is no atheism. If I really believe what Krishna stated,
Yes.
because all some known is God. Everything that is happening is because of me. I'm everywhere. It's me. The moment I see it.
Yes, that's half, you got half of the story.
Okay.
Krishna says, Maya tatam midam sarvam jagadav yakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani naham te sravastata. That by my expansion, by me and my energy, I'm expanded everywhere. So this is called the Achincha Beta Abheda Tattva philosophy. How Krishna is everything, is what you said, but he's also different from everything simultaneously and conceivably. Now, how that is, there's an example given in the Vedic literatures about the sun globe, the sun deity and the sun globe, and the sunshine. So the sun is everywhere by the sunshine. But the sun is also localized too, simultaneously. And within the sun, there are living entities. That may be hard to believe. It's pretty hot in there. But, there's living entities everywhere. Sarvagataha, Krishna says. So, just like recently, the scientists have gone down to the depths of the ocean, and they've discovered where these real hot vents coming out of the ocean floor. There's living entities there. It's hotter than boiling temperature here. The boiling temperature at seafloor. At seafloor is actually a lot because there's more pressure there. Those of you who are scientists, you understand this. So the scientists discovered life there. There's life everywhere. There's life in the air here. There's microbes in the air. So basically, there's living entities in every corner of the creation. So Krishna, in other words, Krishna is expanded everywhere by his energies, but he's localized as a person. Does that make sense? He also has a localized aspect because
he is. I agree.
He's localized. Krishna is localized, and his energies expand, and his expansions, his Vishnu Tattva expansions.
Right. So the more I'm going with, I think is again I'm taking a step back.
Yeah.
Okay? There are many other religions, many other things. So taking Krishna as 5,000 years ago as he lived.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at, I think, is his definition of what the whole universe, wherever I am.
Yeah.
I see him as the more atheist than anybody else, one. Second, I think what he's saying, is, I'm everywhere. Okay, I'm everywhere. And as you said, I'm localized too.
Yeah,
so I have both, right? I have both localized.
Yeah, but the superior aspect of God is the localized aspect. He has energy. If you read the beginning of the 9th chapter of the Gita, and I'll read you some verses, one of which I just quoted, it explains it very, very nicely. Krishna explains very nicely. If you go to the beginning of the 9th chapter, first few verses in the 9th chapter, explain what we call the Achinsya Beta Beta Tattva philosophy.
Now, for me, the more I see, the localization comes once in a while, because as
No,
I
the
see
localization is always there. Krishna, because there is a spiritual realm above this realm that's called Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Vaikuntha, of course, is a negative definition, means without anxiety. But Paravyoma, let's use the word Paravyoma. And in this Paravyoma, Krishna is always there. He's always there. And from time to time, he does something called avatar. The word avatar, some of you saw that movie Avatar? You also saw that. That movie didn't use the word avatar in the right way. Because avatara means to cross down. The word avatar means to cross down. Like the word tirtha, the tirtha means a crossing place where you can cross up. And those of you who are interested in science fiction, anyone here knows about science fiction? There's something called a portal.
Yeah, portal.
Oh, good. We can talk later.
Yes.
That's my background too, science. So, a portal is a place you go to and you can just like zap to the other end of the universe or something like that. So the tirthas, the tirthas that we have, like Vrindavan, Mayapur, Haridwar, and all these different tirthas, they're actually crossing places where you can enter and absorb the spiritual energy, and if you have the right consciousness, you can actually cross spiritually to the spiritual world. And that spiritual world is always existing. Krishna describes in the Gita, I quoted some verses, Tad Vashyate Shuryo Nashushanko Nabhavaka, etc., about the spiritual world. So, Krishna is always existing, and the material world is not always there. That's the thing that's temporary. The Bhagavad Gita also says, Bhutva Bhutva Paliyate. Again and again, this creation is manifested and then it is destroyed. Because I mentioned in the beginning about the Mahavishnu, we're getting to the ninth chapter, the Mahavishnu who is breathing out, but he also breathes in. You know, there's the Big Bang, boom. Like the scientists talk about the Big Bang. They really can't understand what's happening with the universe because they postulate that there's energy and matter, you know. Yeah, well, not just, but there's hidden energy and hidden matter that they can't even measure or know it exists.
Antimatter.
What?
Antimatter and anti-energy.
Yeah. Well, not just anti.
No.
No, this is one thing. But they analyze the universe and they see that the universe is expanding at a greater rate
Yes.
than it should be. Like if you have an explosion, after a while the pieces fall down. You know, it doesn't increase in velocity when you have an explosion, does it? No. It decreases in velocity, and if there's gravity, of course, it falls down. But the universe is expanding at an ever greater rate. How is that? Scientists can't explain that. And there's gravity from other particles, that, hope I'm not getting too much into science, you know, that are causing the universe to move in a certain way, and the scientists can't explain because they can't see those particles. So there's matter and energy happening that they can't even perceive, they can't even understand. And that's Krishna. So at the beginning of the creation, the universes expand out of Krishna's body. At the end, Krishna breathes back. And there's the big, instead of big bang, there's the big contraction. And the whole show just comes to an end. And this is all during the time of the Mahavishnu's sleeping. In other words, it's called Yoga Nidra. He's sleeping, the universes come out, go in, come out, and the whole show is there. It's like I don't know if any of you studied Shakespeare. Maybe some of you studied Shakespeare. Life's but a poor player that struts and frets his time upon the stage and then is heard no more. You heard that quote before? So we think we're so important. You know, we come out on the stage, you know, do our little act. Here we are in America. Next life we'll be on Mars. I mean, I don't know where. People want to go to Mars in a one-way trip nowadays. So, it's true. They're paying money, down payments for a one-way trip to Mars. So, next life, who knows where we're going to be, and we think it's so important, and the whole show comes to an end, and the whole universe comes to an end. But the spiritual universe never comes to an end. Vyakta Vyakta Sanatana, Krishna says in the Gita. It's beyond the manifest and unmanifest. Vyakta Avyakta Sanatana. It's Sanatana. It's eternal. And you're eternal too. But you're taking different bodies and you're identifying with these different bodies. Krishna says in the Gita, Ajopi Sanaviyatma Bhutanami Saropishram Pratakim Swamadistaya Sambhavami Atmamaya. I'm not taking different bodies, Krishna says. He said, I am appearing in my original spiritual form. And anyone who thinks differently, whoops, I better not quote that verse. How do you know that verse? Yeah, I don't want to say anything. But anyone who thinks differently is not really understanding things. That anyone who thinks that Krishna is taking a body, Krishna doesn't take a body. He is his body. We take a body. I'm not my body. I will not look like this 50 years from now. Even if I'm in this body, I won't look like this. I mean, I didn't look like this 25 years ago.
So I want to come to that next question when you say I, right? So after 50 years,
Yeah.
I don't see even an I because
You don't see it, but it exists.
that's where I'm absolutely a little bit
Yeah, so
differing. I don't even see an I because there is no I for me.
I know, we're talking, this is called epistemology. How do you know what you know? We have imperfect senses. I don't see so many things. I don't see radio waves, television waves that are here in this room. Just because I don't see them doesn't mean that they don't exist. I mean, I can prove that there's radio waves here if I just pick out my mobile phone, and because I have the right instrument. But seen or not seen does not mean non-existence. So the way we understand things the proper way to understand things, the theory of knowledge, is called Dharmam tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. It's a descending process. So I accept what Krishna says. I don't see everything, no. I'm not God. But I accept his version. And why should I accept his version? Krishna explains, or Arjuna explains in the Gita, that Krishna's God. Because all these great personalities have accepted Krishna as God. Krishna, if you think about the different conceptions of God, you will see that Krishna is the absolute best conception of God.
I agree.
The most merciful. I mean, we were talking about this morning, we were having class, Bhagavatam class, that in many religions, and I'm not going to mention any particular religion, they depict God as practically like a monster. They say that if you don't surrender to God in this life, then he puts you into a hell, fire, brimstone, lake of whatever, forever and ever and ever. And Krishna is so merciful. You know, Krishna is ready to take us back at any time. He appears or comes in this world to bring us back. So, the conception of God as Krishna, and of course, borne out by the great sages, like Devala, Sita, Vyasa, then I accept that. And also, another reason I accept that is described in the 9th chapter of the Gita, in the beginning, Prachaksha Bhagavam Dharmam Shushukam Kartamadiyam. That if you follow this process that Krishna recommends here, you have pratyaksha. You have, aksha means like eyes or to see. Pratyaksha, you have direct perception. So I can say, you know, I'm not making any claims for myself, I guess I am, is that since I have been following this process of Krishna consciousness and serving my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada since 1971, I've had direct experience of Krishna consciousness. So not only words, experience. So
Yeah, the reason why actually I've been searching or been going through.
Yeah.
I've been listening different things. So I, at least very clearly, I am coming to a stage where ego or I are the two things that you need to really get rid of. That means there could be something, what we said, right, Atma, those things.
yeah,
But the way we understand, the way we see, and the way we associate, it's me, it's mine, it's my body,
yes,
it's me,
you're right.
it's not there.
Yeah, that's
So the moment you see,
that's called ahankara.
it's not even ahankara, right? Even if I see, hey, there is something, it's only me, and then it's going to be in the next life. It's, again, when I talk to the people, they said, no, it's not. It's lost. There is something, but it's not one entity. It's not one entity as is.
Well, Krishna says to Arjuna, there is one entity.
And that's what I
Krishna
talk
says to
people.
Arjuna that last time I was here speaking the Bhagavad Gita, you were there also. But you can't remember because you changed your body. I mean, it's like we're changing our body continually. The body influences our consciousness. I mean, you're the same soul that you were when you were born, but your body has changed. In the same way, you reincarnate and take another body. Krishna's so many statements. Deyano spin yata dehe komaram javaram jarat jarat yata dehantaras praptir diras tatram namuyati. Anyway, you have your opinion. All I'm saying is if you try to understand Gita and you try to chant, then you'll realize what I'm saying. That's the proof.
The more I'm reading, I'm seeing more.
Not just reading. You practice the chanting, and you will realize it directly. You will see Krishna face to face.
I am actually also changing because the more I read, I'm not seeing just bhakti or just karma or just jnana is sufficient. Because again, I'm not talking about the world outside, after the life, or anything else. I'm talking about the current world.
Yes.
Because what I have now is very important for me. Afterlife, I don't know. All of those theories, all of those hypotheses, Atma, hypothesis, everything is hypothesis for me at this stage.
Yeah. You're
What I
being honest.
absolutely have really is life, this consciousness. I know 60 years I'm going to live. These are all realities are Maya, whatever it is. This is absolutely true.
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm
you
taking
should,
Gita,
you should take care of these things.
right? I'm taking Gita, applying only to what I know is going to happen in this. That's really what I'm doing. Okay, when I do that, so for me, bhakti is the dedication, and then karma is the right action, and gnana is the knowledge.
But knowledge of what? Dedication to who?
Knowledge.
Love of who?
That's where the Gita tells, right? The thing you take and dedicate yourself, that's what you get. The demigod, you take a demigod.
Yeah,
take a
yeah, yeah,
demigod.
yeah. Yanti
So
Deva
if I take
Vritam Deva.
science, and if I take bhakti towards science, I become a scientist.
How can you take bhakti towards science?
So when I say bhakti, for me, again, my understanding is devotion. So
No,
devotion to not a human being, devotion to anything that you like.
no, that's not bhakti. That's not the definition of bhakti. That's dedication. The word, wait a second.
Dedication is different.
The word
Devotion
bhakti,
is- see, this is what really what I feel, right? Bhakti.
okay. The word bhakti comes from the root bhaj, which means to worship. So it's not just dedication, it's worship and it's unalloyed worship. If you analyze the word bhakti. So better not to use the word bhakti. But in any case, at least you're honest. I appreciate that you're honest about yourself. One point I want to make is yes, we should take care of the things in this world, be dedicated, do things nicely. You know, if you're a scientist, do things nicely. If you have a family, take care of your family nicely. But also plan for the future. Wait a second. He who fails to plan, plans to fail. And just one final example I'd like to leave you with is that if you're living in a house and you're renting and the lease is running out, you know, the next year, what do? Does anyone know? You look for another house or extend the lease? Go to a doctor and extend the lease. Anyways,
No.
but you can't extend the lease. So look, so it Atato Brahma Jigyasa, this is Vedanta Sutra, that now we have the human body where we're able to think about these things. The animals are different. The animals, they're engaged in eating, sleeping, mating, defending, you know that. So, at least, yeah, take care of things perfectly here. Be devoted to what you're doing. Be conscious of what you're doing. But also try to think of the future, too. That's all. That's all. That's all I'm leaving you with. Let's take to someone else's question. I know, we can talk later.
I will.
Okay.
I will absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the difference between realized knowledge and the knowledge which you accept from the authority?
Okay, one is called jnana and the other one is called vijnana. Now, let's say, let me give an example. Let's say Krishna says here that we're not the body, we're undergoing reincarnation and everything like that. That's jnana right there. So, by the practice of bhakti, you realize, you actually experience that you're a soul different than the body. Now, how do you do that? You actually receive the spiritual platform. And there are examples of people, devotees, pure devotees, actually having spiritual pastimes with Krishna on the spiritual platform while simultaneously being in this body. That's realization. Or let's give it an ordinary example. Let's say I say this, I have a piece of cake. And I said, this cake is sweet. And you can repeat the words, that's jnana. And then when I give it to you and you eat it, that's vijnana. Vigata jnana. Where you've actually experienced the knowledge. And therefore you have faith. And Krishna in the 9th chapter of the Gita says this is why Krishna consciousness is called the king of education. At the beginning of the 9th chapter he says, Raja Vijay Raja Gulyam, Pavitrami Damuttamam, Prachaksha Bhagavan Dharyam, Shushukam Kartamavyam. Then it gives direct perception.
That's not mine.
Is that yours?
No.
Oh. It's a nice song. So, you get direct perception of the spiritual reality. And And this is not just an empty promise. Many, many great souls have experienced this. And I promise that if you try it, just make an experiment. What's the harm?
Oh, I did.
There's no harm.
I did.
There's no harm. I mean, you just chant. I've seen that because I've been presenting Krishna consciousness, for the last 40, God knows how many years at this point. That if I get people to chant and offer their food to Krishna, then they experience this higher dimension of consciousness. They begin to experience Krishna. They begin to see the deities better. They actually see how Krishna is there in the deity form. And Krishna reciprocates. They see how Krishna's reciprocating with them every day, providing for them. Krishna says, Ananyas chinta yanto mam, yejana paripasate, tesham nityavayuktamam, yogikshema vahanyaham. They see, that Krishna provides what you have. He protects what you lack. I mean, it's amazing. My personal experiences have been amazing in the last, how many years? Almost 50 years, I think. Oh my God. I still feel. Actually, the interesting thing is when you have an old body, you still feel like you're 16. But anyway, until you start to jump rope, which I tried the other day and it didn't work. That's proof I'm not the body. So, anybody else have a question? If not, we're celebrating Gita Jayanti. Yes, of course.
I'm not trying to take his question away,
Okay.
but I was just really thinking what he told, Krishna is an atheist. So I'm really thinking theism means you believing, you want to depend on somebody, like you don't understand, you're depending on somebody higher strength or higher person you are believing.
Yeah.
Where Krishna says very clearly in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam also establishes clearly, he's the source of everything.
Yes.
He is upholding this world to establish dharma by his own will, but Atma Maya he is appearing. And he's establishing everything very clearly in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So who is there for Krishna to believe so that he has to prove his thesis? Where is that?
Krishna believes in himself.
Exactly. Where is that point coming?
Yeah, Krishna believes in himself, and he states that many, many times. That I'm the supreme personality of God. Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. I mean, the first Krishna believes in. He's self-sufficient.
Exactly.
He's self-sufficient, and the words used in the Bhagavatam are apta kama. He can satisfy his own desires. We are always dependent on others. But Krishna is not. He's swarat. He's independent. Whatever he wants, he gets immediately just by him desiring it. And we need someone else and all sorts of. We need Krishna, obviously, but we need so many people in this world to get what we want. So, great. You can't really say Krishna is an atheist. I mean, he doesn't worship anyone else. Actually, he does worship himself. That is fact. Now I'm thinking about it. When Krishna goes by a lake and he sees himself, he thinks, who is this beautiful boy? And then Krishna wants to worship himself. Krishna is thinking, my devotees are more fortunate than me. They get to enjoy, because serving Krishna is more enjoyable than being Krishna. And so then Krishna appears as his best devotee. His best devotee, of course, is Srimati Radharani. So Krishna appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So yes, Krishna worships himself. Sorry, I forgot about that. Krishna actually worships himself, so he's not really an atheist. He wants to worship himself, so he appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's crying out for himself. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram, patitam mam vishame bhavambudo, kripaya tava padavankaja, stita duli sadrasam vachintaya. He's crying out, O son of Nanda Maharaj, I'm your eternal servant, but somehow or other I am suffering in this horrible ocean of material existence. Please take me and fix me up as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. And he's saying, Yugayitam nimishena chakshusha pravashayitam, shunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda vidahename, Oh, Krishna! Krishna is saying that to himself.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Krishna is saying to himself, oh, Krishna, feeling you're separate. It's like saying to yourself, I'm feeling my own separation so much that a moment is like yuga, and tears are coming from my eyes with torrent. Krishna is the ultimate egoist. But that's all right. That's pure. So anyway, so he worships himself in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And also, we say that Krishna is complete. You know, Om Purnamada Purnamidam, according to the Upanishads, Ishopanishad. But he feels a need for us. He actually is missing us. There's this one interesting book written by this great Acharya, Sanatana Goswami. It's known as the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Some of you may be aware of that. And in this book, it depicts Krishna becoming so happy, or so anxious, first of all, for his devotee to come back, that he actually comes down and appears as spiritual master. And then, when Krishna finally comes back to the spiritual world, Krishna faints in ecstasy and says, I've been waiting for you so long. And everybody thinks that Krishna's been attacked by some demon, but actually he's just fainted in ecstasy. So Krishna, the only thing Krishna needs is us. But it's still complete. It's not, we can't say Krishna's incomplete. So, anyway, to answer the question fully, Krishna is not an atheist because he worships himself. If we worship ourselves, mirror, mirror on the wall, you know, who's the nicest sannyasi of them all? That's my best profile. So, that is extreme egotism. And Krishna can worship himself, that's right.
And the Krishna book also doesn't talk about before he would go into the assembly, he would wake up in the morning and he would
Meditate on himself.
meditate on himself.
Yes, he meditate on himself. So,
There is another lesson there too, right?
Yeah.
Because even I have to, certain extent, respect myself. That's
Yes,
what
of
we call
course.
self-respect. But he being everything, right? There is
Yeah.
nobody else that he can.
no,
That's the point I'm trying to say.
Krishna respects his devotees. Krishna respects. He is everything and different from everything simultaneously. Try to understand this.
Right.
Veda, Aveda.
Yeah, absolutely.
Veda, Aveda.
Right. It's the same thing, right?
So Krishna is everything and different from everything, but Krishna also respects his devotees.
I agree.
Krishna is controlled by no one, but he's controlled by love.
So,
Ontologically, well, let's talk later about it. I mean, you have very interesting points, but I don't want to bore
No,
everybody.
where I want to say, I think, is when we see devotees, we think, oh, whoever says Hare Krishna is devotee. But
No.
if I'm everything, everybody is my devotee. If I'm
Ultimately, but they haven't realized it.
Krishna, that's absolutely.
They haven't realized. Everybody, Krishna says, Mami Vamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatan. Everybody is Krishna's part and parcel. But many people have realized that. It's just like everybody in the country is serving the government. Some people are serving in jail, and some people are serving voluntarily. So you can say they're all serving the government. I mean, let's say a perfect society where the police catch everybody who's a lawbreaker, which is very seldom. But let's say, hypothetically, you have a perfect society. So everyone's serving the government. So, but they are not doing it voluntarily. So people in this world are serving Krishna involuntarily. Daivahiyesha gunamayi mamam ye prabhajata. So they're actually controlled by the three modes of nature. Nahi kaschit chanamapi jatatishtatiya karma krit. Karyate yavasa karma sarva prakriti jargana. Okay, let's take someone else's question. Anyone else has a question? Yes.
One question, not related to anything. I was trying to find who Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda were, and somewhere I found that Nanda and Yashoda were actually Vasu, Drona and his wife,
Yeah.
and Bhishma is the 8th Vasu. In the rest of the 6 Vasus, for any of them are also present when Krishna was here?
Well, here's the thing about Drona and his wife, that they're actually empowered expansions of Nanda Maharaj. This is getting a little technical, but the demigods who appear in the higher planets are empowered expansions of the residents of Vrindavan. They're not the same person, although that personality manifests. Does that make sense? Manifests through the empowerment. Just like we have something called a Shaktivesh avatar. A Shaktivesh avatar is a devotee like Srila Prabhupada, who is an avatar empowered by Krishna. So therefore we say that Shakshadavi Tvena Samasta Shastra, that in one sense he's not different from Krishna because he's representing Krishna. Another, let's say mundane example would be an ambassador of a country who is representing the country but he's not the country. So that explains that. As far as your question about the Vasus, Grandfather Bhishma was the only one. The other ones were killed.
Yeah, other ones are killed.
The other ones were killed. They were actually just thrown into the river.
Right.
By Satyavati.
Yeah, but I thought since they are younger,
Oh, they could have appeared again.
they could have appeared again.
They could have. Oh, I said, yeah, Ganga threw them in. That's right. Ganga threw them in the water. So they could have, but I don't have any information about that. That's a good point. Any other questions or comments about the Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Gita?
Maharaj, like in Bhagavad Gita, throughout Krishna explains this knowledge as Guhyam.
Guyam, secret, yeah.
So, in that case, is it something easy for us with our own intelligence, like to understand this knowledge by analyzing or studying by ourselves? So we need to have somebody guide us to understand this knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Of course, that's what Krishna says in the Gita, Tadvidi pranivatena pariprashnena sevya. One can understand this knowledge by inquiring submissively and rendering service. And one should approach a spiritual personality, spiritual master to understand this knowledge, yes. Because it can't be understood, as Krishna says in the Gita also, Naham prakasha sarvasha yogamaya samavrata mudayam navajanati. That I cannot be understood simply by those who are not following the proper process, because I cover them, these people are covered with Krishna's deluding potency, which is an expansion of Yogamaya known as Mahamaya. Yes, so one must understand these things through the proper process. Just like in the academic field, you can't really become a doctor, you can't become an engineer, anything just by reading. You have to have the proper guidance. Good question. Thank you. So, I think we should end now. Take prasadam. Tomorrow is Gita Jayanti. It's also Mokshada Kadasi, so it's fasting from grains and beans. And it's a very auspicious day to read the Gita at the temple tomorrow, not actually Sunday, right? I think tomorrow we're going to have something too, or kirtan or something.
There's a parade tomorrow.
Parade. Oh, we have a parade at the temple? No. And carry, okay. So there's a parade with Sankirtan. What?
Because some people will be coming back and forth to the temple, so some of us might do it in the English tomorrow.
Oh, reading the Gita. Okay. Sunday there'll be a whole reading of the Gita that will begin at what time?
12.
At 12. And then there'll be a small talk by myself at 5:30. There'll be a havan too after the reading of the Gita. And there'll be a small talk at about 5:30, 5:35 in the afternoon, and prasadam. Okay? So thank you very much. Hare Krishna, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. And I'm here to answer any questions personally. Make some more challenges.